Berlin, 1961. A city divided, not just by concrete and barbed wire, but by two opposing visions of the world. The story of the Berlin Wall begins in the ashes of World War II. Germany lay in ruins, its cities bombed to rubble, its people shell-shocked and starving. But as the dust settled, a new conflict was already taking shape, not with tanks and bombs, but with ideas and economic systems. On one side stood the United States and its allies, champions of democracy and capitalism. On the other, the Soviet Union, determined to spread communism across Europe. And caught in the middle, Berlin, this one city, deep in the heart of Soviet-controlled East Germany, became the front line of the Cold War. In 1949, Germany was officially split into West Germany, supported by the Western powers, East Germany, under the iron grip of Soviet influence. Berlin, an island of democracy in a sea of communism, was divided the same way. But here was the problem: while East Germany claimed to be a workers' paradise, its people weren't buying it. They looked to the West and saw something different: freedom, opportunity, rock and roll, blue jeans, and the promise of a better life. Between 1949 and 1961, nearly 3 million East Germans voted with their feet. They fled through Berlin to the West, often under cover of darkness. Entire families vanished overnight. Doctors, engineers, teachers, young students are gone. East Germany was hemorrhaging its future, one escape at a time. The communist government couldn't ignore this exodus forever. On August 12, 1961, as Berliners danced and drank, enjoying the last warm nights of summer, East German leaders made their move. At midnight, trucks rumbled through the streets. Soldiers inspooled barbed wire across intersections. Concrete posts were driven into the ground. By morning, East Berlin was sealed off from the West. The Iron Curtain had become a physical reality. Families woke to find themselves cut off from loved ones. Workers couldn't reach their jobs. Students were separated from their schools. In a single night, Berlin had become two cities, divided by what would soon become the most infamous symbol of the Cold War, the Berlin Wall. At first, it was just barbed wire and hastily erected fences. But soon, it grew into a formidable barrier, 12 feet high, topped with broken glass, lined with guard towers and trigger-happy soldiers. To everyone else, it was the wall of shame. Life on either side of the wall became a study in contrasts. West Berlin flourished, a vibrant outpost of freedom deep in communist territory. East Berlin stagnated, its people living under constant surveillance, their lives dictated by the state. But the human spirit is resilient. Despite the danger, East Germans found ways to escape. Some dug tunnels, others flew homemade hot air balloons. One family even ziplined to freedom on a steel cable strung between buildings. Each successful escape was celebrated in the West. Each failure ended in tragedy. The death strip along the wall claimed hundreds of lives over the years. Men and women gunned down in sight of freedom, their bodies left to lie as a gruesome warning to others. The wall became a powerful symbol of the Cold War. When President Kennedy visited Berlin in 1963, he famously declared, "Ich bin ein Berliner, I am a Berliner." It was a message of solidarity that echoed around the world. For 28 years, the wall stood as an ugly scar across the heart of Europe. But nothing lasts forever. By the late 1980s, cracks were appearing in the communist system. As the Soviet Union weakened, protests swept across Eastern Europe and East Germany. The pressure was building. On November 9, 1989, after weeks of mass demonstrations, the East German government made a fateful announcement: all border crossings to the west would be opened. Berliners from both sides flocked to the wall, at first tentatively. Then, with growing excitement, someone produced a hammer, then another. Soon, the air was filled with the sound of chisels and pickaxes. The Berlin Wall, that seemingly impenetrable barrier, was coming down, not with a bang, but with the joyous cries of people reunited, the pop of champagne corks, and the steady chip-chip-chip of ordinary citizens reclaiming their city. The scenes were unforgettable. People dancing atop the wall, families embracing after decades apart, young and old alike taking sledgehammers to the concrete, determined to tear down this symbol of division with their bare hands. As news spread, The world watched in amazement. The Iron Curtain was lifting. The Cold War was ending, not with nuclear fire, but with scenes of jubilation and hope. In the days and weeks that followed, more and more of the wall came down. Official demolition began in 1990. Today, only small sections remain, preserved as a reminder of what once was. The fall of the Berlin Wall marked more than just the reunification of a city. It signaled the collapse of communism in Eastern Europe and the end of the Cold War. The world order that had defined global politics for nearly half a century was suddenly, dramatically transformed. But the legacy of the wall lives on. In the scars it left on families and communities. In the stories of those who lived through its shadow. In the pieces of concrete now scattered around the world as souvenirs and memorials. The Berlin Wall rose in fear and fell in hope. For 28 years, it stood as a monument to division, a stark reminder of how ideology can tear people apart. Its fall reminds us that no wall, no matter how high or how strong, can stand forever against the will of the people. Today, as new walls rise around the world, physical and metaphorical, the story of the Berlin Wall serves as both a warning and a promise. A warning of how quickly freedom can be lost. And a promise that, in the end, the human desire for liberty and unity will always prevail. The Berlin Wall fell brick by brick, torn down by the very people it was meant to imprison. It is a powerful lesson that the mightiest barriers are no match for the strength of the human spirit when it yearns for freedom.